In this video, I'm gonna break down the exact process that we follow to source motivated sellers on behalf of our high-paying clients so that you know how our DealFlow engine works and why it can work for you as well. So my name is Marco Palmero. For those of you who don't know me, our company Ulysses helps private equity groups, search funds, family offices, strategic buyers, advisors, brokers, you name it. It helps all these people in originating motivated sellers and potential leads that they can then put into their funnel to close multi-million dollar transactions. So in a nutshell, we originate deals, multi-million dollar opportunities on behalf of third parties. Now, I recorded a separate video where I explain the strategic approach towards sourcing deals that is broken down in 3 core pillars. Go check that video out if you want to get a little bit more insight into the strategic part of it. Today, I'm going to focus my attention on the technical setup and the steps that we take when we work with high-paying clients and we kind of like originate deals on their behalf so that you know exactly everything that we do and you can understand why our system is so organized and how it can actually deliver the results that it delivers. So this is going to be quite a long video. In fact, I got my little espresso going. As a Italian, I cannot help myself. So make yourself some coffee. Let's dive into this. The most important aspect of every search that we initiate on behalf of a client is what is the target? I mean, what are the type of businesses that we're looking to find? Because without clarity on the type of assets that we're looking for, it's going to be very, very hard to deliver a certain outcome. Because if you put in something that is not actually clear, you're not going to get anything at the bottom of the funnel. It doesn't matter how good the process is. If there's confusion in the beginning, nothing is going to come at the end. So the most important step that we always want to go through is let's clarify with the client what are the types of assets that he wants to acquire. We might have specific geographies that we want to target, specific industries, specific sub-industries, specific company size, employee counts, revenue, profitability. All these variables are part of the initial process that we go through with each client that kind of like precedes even engaging with somebody. That is something that we generally do before we actually step in and say, okay, let's work together. We want to get clarity on what is it that you're looking to accomplish and how we can help you get there faster and predictably. So first, we got to have a great understanding of what the buy box is, if we want to call it this way. And that is really something that you should work on because we can help you and guide you, but ultimately you are going to know what is the type of company that you want to acquire or what are the type of companies that you want to acquire if you're planning on making multiple acquisitions. So step 1 is identifying these items and making sure we nail them down on paper, so that we can then proceed with our process that is kind of like systematized in nature to increase the chances of success. Now, let's just say that you have clarity on what are the types of businesses that you want to acquire, the type of prospects that you want to talk to, and you say, okay, I'm ready to get things going. But I'm kind of unsure about the type of process that you're going to follow to deliver me these prospects. Well, let's first dispel some myths, because sometimes I see people that are kind of confused by what we do, and they say, well, we tried other marketing solutions in the past and those things never really worked for us. Well, the reason why these things probably didn't work for you is because, again, they were marketing services. So they were general marketing agencies that were just rebranding themselves as somebody who can originate deal flow. And that's not who we are. That's not what we do. So if you're looking for a marketing agency, go somewhere else. Maybe there's somebody that can help you. I doubt, because very few marketing agencies can succeed in this arena that is business acquisitions for a variety of different reasons. But the point is, we are not a marketing agency. We are an M&A partner that works with you in sourcing deals. So all that we do is sourcing transactions, motivated sellers off market that want to exit their business. We don't cover any other industry, any other segment. So we specialize in this area, and that is kind of like the key differentiator. Most people get poor results when it comes to sourcing deals because they compare it to a marketing exercise, which to some extent, we can say it is, but the problem is if somebody that doesn't have background in M&A approaches this niche, he's just gonna, get butchered, to be frank with you, because they're gonna try to find people that are interested in buying a product or service, because that's all they did for other clients. And in reality, what we're trying to identify here is not somebody that is interested in buying a product or service. We're trying to find somebody that is interested in selling his business, which is, a tiny detail, but it is not something that, should be taken lightly. In fact, that type of interest is something significantly different than buying a product or service, which is why most marketing services don't succeed at finding deals. So if you feel, that something that you tried in the past didn't work for whatever reason, that the quality that you were getting was not enough, the quantity that you were getting was not enough, chances are you were working with a marketing agencies that is generalistic, in his approach, not with an M&A partner that only sources motivated sellers and therefore has processes and procedures that are optimized for sourcing transactions. And that is what we do. So provided that is clear, then let's say that you have your buy box and you say, okay, how do we build a system that can bring me motivated sellers? Well, first of all, we got to understand that the cycle for finding deals is generally quite long, but you can get very solid results in a few weeks' time if you build everything correctly. Ultimately, we cannot tell the type of outcome that we're going to get from the market, because it will be just, ludicrous to assume how many people are going to be interested in selling their business at any given time. On average, based on industry data, in any given industry, there are about 10-15% of business owners that are interested in selling at any given time. But that, of course, can vary. So the point is, we need to build a system that has a high probability of delivering results independently of where we are in the cycle, and then work on it long enough so that we can see the outcome come through. And seasoned buyers that bought multiple businesses understand this. If you're a family office, private equity group that already made investments, I'm sure you understand this. Even if you are an advisor that is just looking at deals to sign up as potential clients, this is something that you're quite familiar. I'm quite sure about that. But if you are a search fund or just an investor or a business owner that is looking to buy his first company, you might not be familiar with it. So you got to understand that the cycle is quite long, and depending on when we step into the cycle, we might need to accommodate for 1 month time, 2 months time, or less, depending on, again, how the pipeline builds up. The overall objective is to create a system that is consistent over time, in that has multiple channels to touch business owners, so that we can build strong relationships and identify where they're more likely to respond to us, so that we can ultimately get them to say yes if they're interested in selling the business. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a step back and let's move forward from when we started. So you have your buy box. What is it that we need to do now that you have clarity on the type of company that you want to go after? Well, once we have that nailed down and squared away, it's time for us to build up your own infrastructure that is bespoke to your needs. Uh, the overall objective of every engagement that we take on when we work with high paying clients is to create something that works for you in your specific case and can deliver results based on your buy box. And that is what we do generally the first 7 to 10 days of the engagement. We work alongside you or your team to identify, the right niches, the right companies to reach out to, the messaging that we're going to utilize, how we're going to funnel people into our system, and how we're going to book qualified appointments for you. Because the objective is to take people from a yes, I'm interested in selling, to a qualified appointment, with you. That's all that we do on behalf of client when we work on very bespoke engagements. So we need to build up all that infrastructure, and generally it takes us 7 to 10 days to do that. Over that period of time, we do a lot of different things. First, as I said, define the audience. That is based on your buy box. So we find contact information of business owners and decision makers that we can reach out to directly, and then we keep adding contacts to that list and refining it as we progress. The second thing that we do is we create very customized templates that are going to go out, that are going to be like the guideline of the campaigns, independently of the channels that we're going to use for reaching out to business owners. And after that, we also create the funneling system. So how can we filter people after they say yes? And how can we, lead them to a call in a very predictable way? I'm going to go through all these items, and explain them in detail in a second. But let's talk about the list itself. So the collection of data that kind of like the data collection process that we go through is very sophisticated. And sometimes I get asked by people, well, where are you sourcing your data, Marco? Or what is the place where you find all your data? I think those questions are kind of like fair, but to some extent show a lack of understanding of the data sourcing process, because most people believe there is the solution for sourcing information, or there is a platform for finding data. The reality of it, that is not the case. I mean, some people will talk about ZoomInfo, some people will talk about Grata, Invin, PitchBook, you name it. All these are good tools. I'm not gonna talk badly about them because they certainly provide a good service. What I would just suggest as kind of like a point for you to consider is it really worth it for you to invest that type of money into databases that, yes, are going to provide you with organized data, but they're not going to give you anything else. They're not going to give you a system. They're not going to give you any infrastructure to reach out to these leads. Or is it better to allocate those resources towards working with somebody that can source the same data and also, give you the system that originates the opportunities? So there's a trade-off between the two, and sometimes people get confused a little bit by the fact that platforms pitch that they have a lot of data available, but in reality what you should look for is what is the data that I'm actually going to utilize. For example, if you say, okay, I'm going to subscribe to ZoomInfo because they have a ton of data, millions of contacts, and I feel it's the most reliable source of information out there. I'm going to pay probably 15 grand a year, something like that, and I'm going to get access to good data. The problem is if you are searching for businesses that maybe are in a very niche area, let's say 5,000-6,000 businesses across the entire US, you're basically paying 15 grand for 6,000 contacts, and all the rest of the database is not going to be useful to you. In addition, most of the enriched information that you get on these databases can be only partially useful to you, but in most cases, you're just going to get signals, meaning information that has been collected but hasn't been verified. So from a revenue perspective, profitability, and all these sorts of things, you might get information that is not necessarily on point. And what I'm hitting at is, what if I tell you that we, maybe other people, I don't know, have found a way to go to the source of that data and collect the information that is needed to do origination, meaning contact information, company information, business profile, without actually leveraging these third-party platforms. What if I tell you we could do that for you, and then add to that the system that delivers the qualified appointments? That will kind of like create a situation where you're saying, well, I can either pay a lot of money to a database and just get data, or I can work with Marco and his team, get the data and also the delivery of the appointments. So a lot of our clients generally go through that top process, which I think it's funny. But the point is, the data part, there's no cookie cutter, or there's no unique solution for that. A lot of databases provide good information. Most of them provide similar data with maybe different features in terms of enrichment, which again might be something nice for you to consider, but I still feel it's not super mandatory unless you are a big private equity group, family office that needs that on a daily basis. If that is the case, feel free to use that as an additional tool other than maybe working with somebody like us that provides also the support for reaching out to people. So the data part is a combination of different platforms, different data points. It is not a unique answer that you can have. And if you're looking for it, you're going to be disappointed, because again, you sign up for ZoomInfo or you sign up for Grata, whatever, and you think you're covering the entire market. Well, in reality, I could tell you that there are probably 30-40% more businesses that you can get on Google Maps. Yes, more work involved to get the information from these businesses, but still 30-40% more context that we can reach out to by adding an additional channel of origination, in terms of data. So I want you to open up your mind and be kind of like flexible in the way data is sourced and organized, because combining multiple platforms, multiple sources of data is actually the way. In some instances, we might also go offline and not necessarily use only online resources if we feel that company directories might be a good solution, or other avenues might be worth considering. So the point is, the data part is complex. Once we have the buy box, we can understand what are the solutions that work best, and combine them together so that we can get as much data as possible that is business owners, decision makers that we can reach out to then inquire about potentially discussing a sale for their business. That is the data part, and we haven't even started the sourcing process. So we're kind of long in the video, but I think it's important to clarify these things. So the data collection is something that we take care of in that 7 to 10 day window. First step. Now, once we have that, it's time to craft messaging. And a lot of people ask me, well, Marco, do you use AI? Do you craft messaging that are just templates? Do you send personalized messages? A lot of different questions around that data area. And the simple answer that I can give is that we do what works. So in some instances, we saw that AI was helping us in being more effective. In other instances, we saw it was just killing our opportunities because it was just too general, not really optimized. I don't care about what people say about giving them the right prompts and all these sorts of things. People could spot whether or not a message was sent by AI, and they actually reacted in a wrong way. Business owners are generally people that are quite smart, so they can tell the difference if a message is written properly and by a human or just by an AI bot. And I feel that there are areas where AI can be leveraged to increase quality, but you need to be aware of what these areas are. And that's why we try to balance the two things to make sure the messages that we are going to send out to business owners are always optimized for readability and, of course, response rates. Now, important aspect, what is it that we do when it comes to reaching out to people? Because I mentioned in the beginning that we do multi-channel outreach. We have a DealFlow engine that originates opportunities. The idea for us is always to reach out to business owners directly, so off market, and build a relationship that way. I can talk about email outreach, I can talk about SMS outreach, I can talk about LinkedIn outreach. In some cases, I can talk even about call outreach, which is something that has been tested as we speak to improve efficiency and decrease investment from a client perspective, something that is working quite well. So we will have updates quite soon. But the point is, we reach out to business owners across a variety of different channels in a very organized fashion so that we can, one, understand where these people are more active, two, where they respond to us, and three, how can we build a relationship on that channel. So the template side of things, we have, let's say, guidelines that we follow that have worked for us historically and have worked with a lot of clients in bringing motivated sellers to their door. Those will always be our top recommendations for every engagement, and they can be adapted based on your specific case. Then there's a second part of our kind of like template creation process that is unique to your needs. So we have two parts that get combined together to produce a series of potential messages that are going to go out, or a series of guidelines that we're going to then utilize so that we can then test what works best. Because again, I'm getting back to my point about testing. There's no unique answer. We never know 100% what the reaction is going to be when we start reaching out to business owners to understand whether or not they might be interested in selling their company. Anybody that tells you, I can predict that outcome, is probably lying to you. And, happy to have a conversation with anybody who says any different. But the point is, we cannot tell what the market is going to respond to, unless, of course, we have tons of data in that specific niche and we know what works. But still, market trends change, the economy changes. So even in the same niche, we might have different messages that resonate in a different way depending on where we are in the cycle. So it all comes down to testing, creating a set of variables and variations that we can then put out in front of people, see the ones that perform best, and pick the winners over a series of weeks. Once we have these winners, then we can keep adding new test templates and use them as controls to see, if we can improve and get more leads in, with the new test. But the point I'm getting at is two parts of the template creation. What worked historically, new branded templates that are custom made to your case, combination of all these put out in front of people. We see which ones deliver the best possible outcomes. Then we focus on those, we eliminate the rest, and we keep adding new ideas as we progress to test against the top performing ones. So that is how we go about, creating the templates or guidelines to then reaching out to people. During that 7 to 10 day process, people will get approval rights on everything that we do before we put it out. And that is something that is very important for us, like the visibility aspect. I talked with a lot of companies and people that said, well, we work with third parties, but we were disappointed by the fact that we never saw or we never knew what they were actually doing. And so we didn't know why things were not working if they weren't working, and vice versa. So we give you full visibility on what we're going to put out before it actually goes out, and all revisions always get approved by you. So from that perspective, you have full control over the process, and to some respect, we're both accountable for the outcomes, right? So we need to do a very good job in that 7-10 day window to make sure we nail down everything, and then we can proceed with confidence. And of course, then there are changes that we can make as we progress, but the objective is to give you visibility on everything that we're doing, get your, green sign, kind of like approval on all of these things, and then move forward with confidence. And that is the template side of things. Now we're getting to the filtering process now, because let's say that you have we started reaching out to people across multiple channels. Now it's time for us to qualify these opportunities. A lot of people are going to come in and say yes. What happens next? How do we define whether or not a deal or an opportunity is worth pursuing for you? Well, here's where it gets very interesting, because so many times I've been, told by people that most of the leads that they were getting, or the motivated prospects that they were getting, were not actual leads. And the problem with that was the people that they were working with were just qualifying for interest, but then they were not filtering people before booking a call. And so they were getting either calls that were crap, or people that never said they were in contact with them in the first place, and all these sorts of challenges. So we solve for that by having a kind of qualifying cycle that happens after the person says yes to us the first time. So they come in, they say, yes, I'm interested in selling my business. What is it that we do next? Variety of different things. We can have qualifying questionnaires, screening calls, Loom videos to qualify the prospect, small presentations, different things that we can kind of like build to identify whether or not the person is interested. And those things depend on the type of industry we're in. I mean, I wouldn't send a Loom video to a plumber, if you get what I'm saying. I would probably take a quick screening call with him to understand what his needs are and whether or not he wants to exit the business. On the flip side, I might want to send a quick explanatory video to a medical doctor that has a clinic, because he might watch it in between patients, get a better understanding of what's happening, and then book a call directly from a Calendly link, for example. So there are different ways to skin the cat, and it all comes down to, again, the niche and the industry that you're targeting. That is something that, again, we define together. And if there are funnels to be built, or systems to be created, or maybe video presentations to be recorded, we can take care of all that in the 7 to 10 day preparation phase, so that we can then approve all the stuff and get the process going, at the end of the preparation phase. So it's of course, very simplistic, but the objective of that qualification phase is to make sure we get people on the phone with you that have a higher chance of being qualified. And there are always adjustments that we can make to that, because we might start too broad and then decide that we need to tighten up the process, or we might start too tight and then see that we're not getting any calls, so we need to be a little bit more open in the way we filter people. Those are things that we can only understand as we progress, but of course we will provide with guidelines that have worked for us and previous clients, so that you can have kind of like an idea of what has higher chances of working in your industry based on the search that you're conducting. Very different things that you can do depending on whether or not you're buying just a single business, or you're looking to buy multiple businesses. You want a pipeline that is consistent over time, or you're just working on a fixed time frame, 6 months, you need to buy a business and that's it. So based on that, the filtering process can be refined to achieve the desired outcome, which is bringing people on calls that are actually qualified for your needs. And again, I might sound a little bit too specific in the way I explain this, but I feel this is the most important part of the process, because just getting people to say yes and then passing leads to you, or passing motivated sellers to you, is not going to cut it. The nurturing process needs to be strong and effective, because 1, these people are busy. 2, they get tons of inquiries every single week about people that want to buy their company. So it's important for us to, 1, differentiate ourselves, 2, be very effective in the way we go from the first yes to a book call, so that the guy actually shows up and shares with us what he has to say. Plus, we have qualified him in the meantime to make sure he's also a match for what we do. The most crucial, I would say, aspect of this is what I'm about to say. When it comes to the qualification process, we worked for months to try to streamline it and make it as short as possible. What do I mean by that? There's a time frame that goes between the person saying yes the first time and then him booking a call. If that time frame is too long, and I'm talking about 3, 4, 5 days, maybe more, the chances of losing interest are very, very high. So we might do a lot of work to get the person to say, yes, I'm interested in selling my business, just to then lose the opportunity to talk to him because we have not been effective in the process of qualification. How did we solve for that? Well, we have built a system that first, as the person comes in and says yes, is able to provide a feedback to him within 60, 120 seconds. Very, very effective. After that, it really comes down to how you want to qualify the prospect. If you, as a client, want to have a saying in every single conversation and decide whether or not you want to book the call, then we will notify you directly so that you can make that call. Instead, if you want us to make these decisions, we will have a team member that basically handles the research part and analysis of the deal, makes sure that opportunity checks the boxes, and then immediately sends them slots to potentially confirm a call. And that is done literally in less than 1 hour if we do everything for you. Again, why do we do that? Because as the person says yes, we want to make sure we run him through the funnel as fast as humanly possible so that we get to the end result, which is a conversation with you as a buyer, as an advisor, as a search fund, you name it. So we streamline that. And you might say, well, how do you do that? Well, that's part of the backend system that you get access to that I'm going to talk about in a second, that kind of like ties all the things that I just said to you together. But the objective is, again, streamlining that process, making sure there are no interruptions, that the lead gets feedback timely, so that, again, we can get them on the phone with you. Now, a lot of people pay us a lot of money for all these things because they realize that, we're basically doing what a group of analysts would do for hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in salary. So they can just save themselves all those fees, and they pay us one-time setup, and then maybe part of their success or different engagements depending on the type of structure that they want to build. But the point is, even though we are quite expensive, we're still less expensive than hiring a team member internally. And most firms realize that. Also, people that work on their own, like search funds, realize that. And they can kind of see that with a system that is well structured, they can then transition from doing multiple things and juggling multiple tasks to just focusing on taking calls with qualified prospects, closing deals. We take care of the origination part. So they focus all their attention there, the high revenue generation activities that are part of their cycle. And that's it. And that is ultimately our objective, making sure you can focus your attention on closing deals. Because again, if we get you in front of multiple multi-million-dollar opportunities that you can close and buy, then what are tens of thousands in comparison to that? The investment is de minimis, and most of the clients that we work with realize that, and they have a pipeline that is built in for them, for their needs, and that ultimately delivers the outcome that they want. A few more things that we need to cover in the process. How we tie it all together for visibility. That is done through an internal system that we give you access to. And how is it that we keep track of the process as we move forward together? That is done through weekly check-ins, which is something that we're very proud of, because it's, again, a huge differentiator compared to basically anybody else in the industry. And also an accountability system for us and yourself. So let me break these two things down quickly. I mean, quickly, it's a funny word that this video is already quite long, but anyways, how do we tie all these things together? Well, again, talking about visibility, you always get access to a backend system, a platform, or a CRM, if we want to call it this way, that is proprietary to you and that we manage on your behalf, where you can see where all the leads are in the process and how we are nurturing them and how we're booking them for a call. The interesting part of that is that, again, you have full visibility in the system. You can check it at all times. And we work in the system to nurture leads throughout stages. So think about it as columns, people that come in and say yes, then we qualify them. They're through the qualification process, then we book them for a call. Maybe some leads need review from you, so we put them into the review tab. All these things can be managed internally and you get full visibility on it. At the same time, we collect signals and information on the leads that book the call, so that you can get a little bit of data for that specific asset and business before you actually get on the phone with them, so that you're informed and you know how to prepare accordingly. And again, getting back to the point about the databases, we basically solve for that problem that databases are addressing, but we also put in the mechanism that delivers the appointments to you. So basically, for the same price, you're getting access to a full system instead of just data that has been enriched with some information. Now, the database itself, the kind of like the CRM, the backend system, is organized so that you can keep track of all the opportunities. Now, you might say to me, Marco, well, I don't have time to learn a new CRM system. Not an issue. We have many clients that don't want to have anything to do with it. We set up notification systems for your phone number or your email so that you can get notified every single time a new opportunity comes in, and you can keep track of productivity and output and results from your email or your phone. Then you can log in when you decide is appropriate to review the pipeline and see a little bit more from an overall perspective. But if you want to keep track of results on a daily basis, we can set up notification systems accordingly so that you don't have to log in into a new platform and learn the entire system from scratch. I would still recommend you get a list familiar with the tab that we use, and I will record a separate video to show you how that looks like. But the point is, the opportunity tab is organizing all the data that we collected from motivated prospects that came in, and that kind of gives you full visibility on your funnel. That is kind of like the ultimate objective. So that is how we tied everything together, from the data collection to the outreach templates to the qualification part. Everything is centralized in that CRM or backend system, and you get visibility on that. Now, accountability, most important aspect of the entire system that we run when we work with bespoke clients that, again, pay us a lot of money to source deals on their behalf, multi-million-dollar opportunities that we can find for private equity groups, search funds, family offices, strategic buyers, advisors, even brokers in some instances. The accountability part. So we have noticed that, and we generally require people to get on weekly check-in calls for 30 minutes, at least for the first 4-6 weeks of the engagement. That is, one, to refine the kind of like approach, because as we collect feedback from the market, we might want to make changes, and also always be updated to what's happening with the system. Too many times I've spoke with people that said, well, we work with people that promised us motivated sellers, but then disappeared. That is something that, again, we don't do, and we have an accountability system for exactly that reason. Because as people start to work with us week by week, then they see the type of outcomes that they're getting, how we work with them in a very customized way. And after a period of time, once they start to see motivated prospects that have been booked on their calendar, the pipeline that is building up, then we can transition to maybe calls that are just once every 2 weeks or once in a month, that becomes discretionary to the client. But the point is, we believe in that accountability system because it's about making sure the system is optimized at all times so that we can get you the results that you need. And at the same time, we can keep track of what's happening and we can make corrections if needed. So in a nutshell, the whole system comes down to that, working together week by week and week after week so that we can get you the outcome that you need. Because again, and I'm tying this all back to my first point, market conditions change. So we might start working together today. It's October, relatively good month for sourcing deals across the globe. But let's say that we keep working together and then August comes along and, in your business, in your specific industry, a lot of people take holidays. We might need to refine the strategy during that month to keep bringing opportunities. And if we don't have a check-in session where we can go through these changes, then the whole system might be corrupted for an entire month and not produce results for you. So the objective is have sessions where we check the market conditions, also discuss updates and potential new ideas because things evolve very rapidly in today's economy, and make sure we're always on top of everything so that you can get the best possible outcome. And by the way, if you feel this is something relevant to you, there's a link below to apply for a strategy session where we can dive deeper into the type of businesses that you want to find, motivated sellers that you want to identify, see whether or not we can help and whether or not we have slots available, because we generally take on just a few clients every month for this because, again, it's very bespoke, very specific. So we will need to see first if you qualify and then whether or not we have slots available. So if that is of interest, you can check the link below and find out more about the process for applying. But in a nutshell, this is the entire system as we see it for sourcing DealFlow. Many different things that I covered in the video, but the objective is always the same, and that is bringing qualified calls to your doorsteps and making sure the system runs smoothly. Again, last thing people might say about this is, well, yeah, Marco, this system sounds terrific. It seems like you nail down every step, but what happens if the calls don't show up or they're not quality enough? Well, some calls might not show. That's just part of the game. We can just rebook them. Again, people feel that just because the system is, well taken care of, 100% of people are going to show up. That is not the case, and everybody promising you 100% show up rate is lying to you. But again, the objective of the system is to increase the probability that people that show up on calls are qualified and also increase the probability of them showing up. The two things go toe to toe. Then, of course, we need to accommodate for some of them not being able to make it or needing to reschedule. This is just life, and business owners are busy. So in some instances, we will need to have flexibility on that, but we have a system to take care of that process too. So people that bought multiple businesses understand that because they see that as a cycle that is long. Others that might just be on their first deal might be a little bit more, how would you say that? They might be a little bit in a rush, and I understand that. But the point is, if you're looking to buy a multi-million-dollar opportunity, you should be in a mindset that is the one of patience and understand that the cycle might take a little bit longer than you would expect for finding deals. And this is something that I want to leave you with in kind of like wrapping all these things up. Many times people online pitch you how you can buy a business in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, all these sorts of things. Well, that's all nice and good. You can definitely get these things done if this is the first time you buy a business. But a few things that you need to consider all the time. First, whether or not you're financing these things, because if you're using your own money, chances are you can buy a business much quicker. That's why private equity groups are so effective with it. If you're using financing or SBA, God forbid, if you're in America, it's going to take you longer. So that is something that you need to accommodate for. Now, another part that people never account for is the process of sourcing deals, because people feel that closing a deal starts from, I have a good deal, now I just need to go through due diligence, financing, and closing. Well, you didn't account for the time that is going to take you to source the motherfucking thing. And that is the main issue. Most people don't count the origination process as part of the timeline that they need to go through. And it is important to understand that it's going to take some time for you to originate these deals, especially if you want to find quality off-market deals, especially if they want them to be proprietary to you, and especially if you want to build a system that is sustainable over time. Because it's easy to find one deal and then try to close it. But if you then commit to it and you stop doing everything else, and the deal doesn't close, you're back to square one again. And the cycle is not efficient. Instead, you might want to allocate 1-2 months towards building a pipeline that brings you multiple opportunities. And then you start working on a deal. Opportunities are still coming in. Maybe we source them for you. And at that point, even if one transaction doesn't close, you still have backups. And you can easily start negotiating a second deal, a third, a fourth, until you find the one that clicks. Because again, acquisitions are a numbers game. Some deals might not close for a variety of different reasons. So you want to make sure you have options at all times. And that is what we can provide when we build a system like this. We give you opportunities that are consistent over time, off market. So if you have your broker that you trust and you want to work with him as well, please go ahead and do it. They provide certainly good opportunities, maybe on market. We work more off market. And then you can have a pipeline that is consistent over time so that you can keep looking at deals until you find the one that ultimately clicks. Of course, these are just thoughts for people that buy a business for the first time. If you're a private equity group or an investment firm, a family office, you understand that having a pipeline is the most important aspect of it all. And it takes time to build it consistently. I see a lot of people say, well, we only source deals through referrals. Well, good luck with that. I mean, you got to have a lot of them if you want to do a lot of deals. So you cannot really accommodate for referrals alone. You need a proactive way to source deals, and that is what we help people with, so that you can combine the two things, because you don't need to drop referrals. You can still use them, but you add it to a system that is predictable and that can give you opportunities every single month that you can look into, nurture, and then build into a potential transaction. So very long overview on the process that we go through and all the kind of like challenges that people face when building up a system like this. Hope it makes sense. If you feel we can help with the system and we can kind of like build the DealFlow engine into your business to find you more motivated sellers, multi-million-dollar opportunities that are off market and proprietary to you, check the link below, find out more about how to apply and talk to us to understand whether or not we can work together. And I will see you in the next